In this episode today, we get into reasons why you should fire your advisor, especially if you're thinking that an advisor's sole purpose is to choose investments. Now, we're not giving financial advice today. This is for educational purposes only, so enjoy. If the focus of the consumer is the products, the banks and brokerages win. A lot of people are really a victim of that mission of big banks and brokerages.
How can you get me a better rate of return?
I'd say for which money? Because if you don't have a financial plan that details your income strategy, you're not going to know. It's almost like if someone brought you a whole bunch of building materials and said, hey, Jake, can you get me better materials? And you got to ask, well, what are we building? Nothing about investments should enter the conversation yet. That's the last thing you talk about. All right, this is Nate with Capital and Consequence. I got here with me Jake. And Jake, let's just dive right in. A lot of people say and think that the purpose of an advisor is to pick investments. So an advisor's job is primarily to pick investments. What do you say to that?
Yep. That's why I'm always in the Mediterranean with my yacht.
Okay. On to the next show, on to the next topic. we nailed.
No, I think it's a very misguided mindset. An advisor's job, yes, that is probably about five.
Let's start here. Why do you think so many people think that? Why
I think so many people think that because, I think it's something that's just grabs a lot of headlines historically. And I think over the past 40, 50, 60 years, it's what big banks and brokerages have trained us to think. I think there's a lot of people that can just get attention if it's, hey, guess what? I can pick you a high returning stock. Yeah. Is that what you're seeing?
Yeah. Well, if the focus of the consumer is the products and the investments, the banks and brokerages win. Yeah. And I think what they want is for everybody's interests to be aligned with their business model, because that makes business easier for them. So their business is to sell products, to get assets under management. So if you misdirect their focus to something else, like planning, like financial planning, having a strategy and an objective to reduce your taxes, to maintain your cash flow in retirement, that might confuse people, or it might distract them from what they want your focus to be, which is to buy products and to get assets under management. So a lot of people are really a victim of that mission of big banks and brokerages. So
certainly,
and what I've seen, you've probably seen this too, is there are a lot of people who are shopping investments. They're shopping returns. They're shopping fees. So banks and brokerages have done a good job of kind of commoditizing the advisor and taking the focus away from where it really should be, which is planning. And I think another reason for that, the reason they don't want planning to be the focus, is because now that's going to require a level of expertise. That's going to require more training.
More overhead.
That's going to be a whole lot more difficult to supervise, right? Imagine if you had thousands of advisors all over the country, and they're going to be offering planning and solutions and strategy. Well, now they need to know a whole lot more than your products. They need to know how to apply them, and when are they right, when are they not right.
Yeah.
And it's just too much. They're like, no, let's just let everybody focus on the product.
So let me paint a scenario. If a client is in your office and it's the first time you met with them, you're 5 minutes into this conversation, and the client says, Nathan, how can you get me a better rate of return? Pick me some investments. Where do you go from there in that conversation?
I'd say for which money?
Yeah.
Do you want a better rate of return for the money you're withdrawing next month or next year, or the money you're not going to need for 10 or 15 years? What money are we talking about? And here's one reason why that's such an important question is because if you don't have a financial plan that details your income strategy, you're not going to know. You don't know how much money you're going to need in the next 2 years that you're going to have to actually withdraw from your portfolio. You don't have that identified. And that's really where we want, where people should be focusing is in terms of risk tolerance. How much volatility can you be comfortable with? You really need to know when you're going to need to withdraw money and how much you're going to need to withdraw. Because all the research shows, I mean, the data shows that you should not be overly conservative or conservative at all with money that you're not going to need to spend for 3 years or longer. That's what the data is showing.
Exactly.
Right? So which money are we talking about? So if you're saying, hey, for the money I'm going to need to withdraw in 2 years, I want a better return. Okay. Well, you shouldn't be shooting for a 6, 7, 8% return on that money. You're probably closer to like the 3s and 4s, maybe 5s. But for money that you're going to need after that, yeah, you should be doing a whole lot better. And then we need to consider, well, the tax situation that you're in and which accounts are going to make the most sense to draw from first and last. Yeah. And
so we need to identify.
It's about a whole lot more than returns.
Yeah. So you need to identify the purpose of that money, is what I'm hearing you say. And we also need to identify what is the tax consequences of these funds.
Yep.
Anything else that you would want to talk to that client about out the gate?
Well, it's almost like if someone brought you a whole bunch of building materials and said, hey, Jake, can you get me better materials? And you got to ask, well, what are we building?
What are we doing?
And if they answer, well, I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, then your answer should be, well, I don't know either. so we're stuck, right?
Yeah.
So we have to answer some other important questions before we can get to that one. That's an important question, but some groundwork has to be laid first. Like, what are we building exactly? What is it? Let's draw it out. Let's map it out. And then when we have a clear enough picture, we have the blueprints. Then we can look at the inventory of the materials we have to determine that we either have the right stuff or we don't have the right stuff. We got to swap stuff out.
Yeah.
So people want to start, on the fourth rung of the ladder when they need to start with the first one.
Yeah. As I think about it, it makes me a little frustrated that big banks and brokerages have pushed this idea for so long. I think we see this in our clients all the time where, some people will walk in with that mindset. And then after we go through 2 or 3 planning sessions with them, they oftentimes are walking away saying, oh my gosh, I didn't know that was possible.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't know that my resources could produce that kind of a life with our family, which is really what we should be solving for. Like, not just what is the return, not just can you find me a better stock, but I think we should be solving for what's important in your life and how high of a probability of success can we create for you to have that lifestyle.
Yeah, because you know what these people are really thinking about? They're not thinking about their stocks. They're not thinking about their ETFs, their bonds, their private assets. They're thinking, am I going to be able to visit my grandchildren when I want to?
Yeah.
Am I going to be able to take that trip to Europe maybe annually? Or can I do the things we've dreamed about? Can I remodel my kitchen?
Yep.
That's what they're worried about.
Certainly.
And if you're trying to solve those problems just by looking at your investments, you're not going to be very confident that you've ever solved the problem, because you really won't have the problem solved. You need to see, where is that money going to come from that I'm going to use to remodel my kitchen? And let's get an idea for how much that is. What about the timeline? Am I going to do this year? Is it something I'm going to do maybe 5 years from now when, such and such happen, whatever?
Yeah.
Have that strategy. And then you can plan and say, okay, well, if we need, I don't know, what's a good kitchen remodel? What do you think that goes for? It depends on what you're doing.
Depends on how big the house is.
Depends on the size of the kitchen.
I mean,
well, let's say 50 grand.
Yeah.
At least. I mean, decent kitchen. Let's say it's 50 grand and we know we're going to use that 50 grand 3 years from now. Well, we're going to treat that money differently because it has a purpose. It has a job. And we're not going to invest that 50 grand in small cap stocks, invest in a startup
Bitcoin.
Tech company or Bitcoin. No. Now that might be just a perfect allocation for some of your money, but not that 50 grand. That's your kitchen.
Yeah.
You're going to bet your kitchen on
You're going to bet your Thanksgiving
small
dinner.
Cap stock. Yeah, exactly. So now that we know that, okay, let's treat that differently. All right, well, now when are you going to step away from work or sell your business? And where are you going to get the $10,000 a month you're going to need to just fund your lifestyle? Where's that going to come from? That's $120,000 a year $240,000 in 2 years. Well, maybe we should treat that $240,000 differently, plus the $50,000 for your kitchen. You see what I'm saying? Now we're being productive, and you notice how nothing about investments should enter the conversation yet.
No.
That's the last thing you talk about.
Yeah.
It is the last thing you talk about. But if you step into a bank or a brokerage, that's the first thing they want to talk about.
And sometimes the only.
Because they don't want to talk about the other stuff. That's not what they do.
Yeah.
They want to get you talking about what they do.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't blame them for doing that, right? You step into a McDonald's.
Yeah.
They want to sell you a burger. Like, they don't want to help you, go
to the gym.
Plan a ski trip.
Yeah.
You walk into a McDonald's and
Yeah.
you say, "Hey, I need some good leather boots." And they're like, "Sorry, we can't help you. You want a burger? Like, look at all these burgers."
Yeah.
Because that's what we do. We sell burgers. Mm-hmm. So you can't fault any business for being relentless about being aligned with their business model.
Yeah.
But we have to be free thinking, critical thinking adults. Mm-hmm. And know when, hey, we need more than what this business is selling us. And that's kind of what we're trying to do here. Yeah. That's why we're having these conversations that people can listen in on.
Absolutely.
So maybe we can turn the light switch on for somebody.
So I think as we wrap up this conversation, I have a final question for you, because I know some of our listeners, we're obviously in the Austin area, but some of our listeners are across the country, and maybe they already have an advisor or something that they're trying to talk to. How would you instruct someone to go in and figure out, am I really working with a planner, or am I working with someone that's just going to give me an investment solution and try to tout rate of returns?
All right. So here's what you do. You start asking these questions and pay close attention to how they respond. Mm-hmm. You say, "Hey, I want to remodel my kitchen in 3 years. I want to retire in 5 years. I'm going to need $10,000 a month. I want to be able to travel like this." Just start talking about how you want to live your life, and ask questions about how to fund that kind of lifestyle. Okay. And then close your mouth and listen to the response you get. And if you're not satisfied with the response, chances are really good you're not talking to a planner. Mm-hmm. You're talking to a product person who might be pretending in the moment to be a planner. And again, in their defense, this is what they're trained to do. And they have to do that to keep their job, but you don't have to work with them.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing you say is you need to ask a question about, how am I going to spend on a specific thing in a specific time frame?
Yeah, start asking real questions about how you use your money to live. The purpose of your money is to fund your life.
Yeah.
Start asking questions about how you're going to do that.
Yeah. Share your vision.
What about taxes? And then just pay close attention to their response. And their response is going to reveal to you whether they're qualified to be serving you or not.
Fantastic. I got to say, I could sense some passion from you. You feel very passionate about that idea.
Yeah. I think there's so much more we could talk about too, but this is kind of personal for me, because I feel like the financial struggles I experienced when I was young, that our family did, was really a result of bad advice. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of I have a little bit of a vendetta.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
this was just one of many conversations we're going to have that are going to turn the light on in your mind about your finances, your retirement plans. So tune in next time and see if we can help you.